What is a mind trick you know? Story 1. You know that awkward moment when you and a stranger are walking towards each other but need to get past each other, and you get confused and end up doing a left to right dance? Not for me when I walk through large crowds of people. To avoid walking into anyone, I simply stare at my destination. I look no one in the eyes. People actually will watch your eyes and they avoid the direction you are going. If I look into people's eyes as we are walking into each other, we are sure to collide. You have to let people know where you intend to go with your eyes. It always works for me. Try it. Your turn. Teach me some good mind tricks. Story 2. I live in inner city Akron, Ohio. Needless to say, there is a pretty high crime rate around the university center. So I took a self-defense course at the university and learned the best self-defense tricks I could have never thought of. Act crazier than the person attacking you. I'm talking mental patient on PCP, with a bad case of Jack Nicholson insane. 9 times out of 10 they will see you as unpredictable, and not want to even mess with you. For example, I was across the street from my apartment at a Circle K buying a 40 and a pack of smokes at about midnight 30. And this guy comes up from nowhere and asks me if I want to make some money. I reply, no thanks, I have a job. The clerk behind the window disappears to get my stuff, and I'm stuck outside in the open, standing right next to what amounts to a drug-selling would-be burglar. After a while the silence and tension gets unbearable and I ask him what his proposed opportunity entails. Just then the clerk comes back, gives me my stuff, and shouts out the window, yo, what's up, Dentel? Or something along those lines. The shady guy shakes his head and starts to walk away. I pay for my stuff. Start walking along under the lights along the white wall of the building, so I can be seen in case anything happens, and I see to my left that this shady guy is following me, walking parallel to me in the parking lot where it's dark. He calls over to me and starts walking towards me. I'm all like nope, so I curve my arms up. So my hands are in my armpits and I crouch down with a wide stance and walk sideways in a crab walk, guerrilla-style fashion, and start screaming obscenities about aliens and Arabic coffee. The guy takes one look at me and makes a run for the bus stop. Story 3. If you're trying to find something, try looking right to left as opposed to left to right. Your eyes tend to skim over things if you search in the direction you are used to reading in, so skim the opposite way. It takes me a bit more effort to do this, but I notice more details. Story 4. If I need to remember to do anything at all the next day, I will put something in my room out of place. This works every time. Say, for example, I really want to remember to email my professor before leaving for class. One will put a movie on the floor. I will initially think, why is that a right email, Ernie? A key technique for me. Story 5. When trying to get away with something sketchy, not illegal per se, but frowned upon, walk into the place like you own it. Don't glance around. Don't even stop for a second or look confused. 9 times out of 10 nobody will question you. You can get away with lots of things that way. Story 6. Okay, so here's one my father taught me years ago when I was just a small child. It's not a mind trick so much as it is an illusion. Then again, an illusion is just tricking your mind, so I think it counts. So I use the knuckles on my pointer finger and middle and wrap them around someone's nose. Then I pull back while I covertly slip my thumb between my 2 knuckles. I then proclaim, got your nose. Most people stand in shock until I reveal that I haven't actually removed their nose. It's a useful trick for picking up women as well as entertaining at parties. Story 7. I'm a paramedic. When a patient is possibly faking unconsciousness, we have to tricks to determine if they're really unconscious or not. First, you can lightly brush their eyelashes with your finger. Their eyes will flutter if they're faking it. Alternatively, if they're on their back, you can lift their arm over their face and let it go. A conscious person will drop their arm away from their face. Finally, a trick to see if someone is faking a neck injury or neck pain. Put a thermometer in their mouth while checking their vitals, then ask them a yes or no question while looking them in the eyes. If you aren't looking directly at them, they tend to answer with a strained aha or an but if you're looking directly at them, they will usually nod their head. Someone who is faking the pain can do this with ease. Story 8. In class, if it's a presentation where someone has to present without looking at notes or anything like that, and while they're up in front of classroom presenting, some people forget what they're talking about, space out, freak out, and lose their train of thought. To counter this, nod your head at the end of each sentence they say, confirming what they're saying. They will somehow use this as a motivator, and 9 times out of 10 will keep presenting without fault. Story 9. During a job interview, you want to keep eye contact with the person you're talking to. It makes you seem more alert and confident. Here's the trick. Every 5 or 10 seconds, switch the eye you're looking at. It's such a small motion that the other person can't see it, but it makes your eyes look like they're sparkling, which makes you look very interested in what the other person is saying. Probably works for dating too. People have asked for clarification on how this is supposed to work. On the small motion part, you have to be a few feet away from the other person. Otherwise, the angle your eyes have to shift to look at the other eye is easily noticeable. On the sparkling, since your eyes aren't perfectly spherical, when they move, the reflection of any lights in the room changes slightly. If the movement is small enough, all the other person sees is the light's reflection moving on your eye, thus sparkling. Story 10. The door in the face technique. The general idea is that you ask someone for a huge favor which you're relatively confident they'll say no to. Then you ask them for a small favor. Subjects who initially refuse the huge favor have a much higher compliance rate on the small favor than if you just ask directly for the small favor or if you present both at once. If they end up saying yes to the huge favor, that's also good. Story 11. If you're in a crowded social group, restaurant, bar, party, and you want to know if someone is checking you out, try this. Turn sideways from them. They will be either 90 degrees right or left of you, then very obviously look at your watch. Even if you don't wear one, lift your wrist, then point at your watch and nod thoughtfully. Overacting is perfectly acceptable. If they are keeping tabs on you, even peripherally, they will have a sudden urge to know the time and will either look at their own watch, cell phone, or casually look at the various obvious places where someone would put a clock. Story 12. This is probably silly, but you know that thing where if you repeat a word enough it loses its meaning. Well, I've convinced myself that there is some kind of similar thing going on with pain. If I'm in pain, if I focus 100% on the pain and block out everything else, the pain kind of loses its meaning. I still feel it, but it's no longer pain, it's just what it is. Story 13. I discovered this one from my mother, actually. If you're out and about and come across hooligans or other ne'er-do-wells that might be up to something, such as smashing things up, who might well become confrontational, you need to approach them and ask for a light or the time. As you walk up, they'll be ready for a fight. When they realize that you, as a sole person, has approached them as a group and asked something innocuous and unrelated to their activities, they will very likely give you the time, light that you asked for. Then shuffle off with a bemused feeling. I'm not advocating that you should go out and try, but only if you might have to pass by an incident going on where they notice you and you don't want any trouble. Of the 3 times in my life that I have been in this situation, it has always worked. Story 14. It occurred to me a while back that a security uniform, any security uniform, will get you past everyone, including security guards from a different company with a completely different uniform. As a security contractor, businesses at malls, for example, will call me to watch their store specifically for different reasons, mostly at night. Once time I got lost, I ended up at the entrance of a closed department store at a mall, and the manager himself pretty much ushered me in. If I hadn't asked how to get to my destination, he would have just bolted off and I would have had the place to myself. It's not the first time I wandered into places I shouldn't be, completely unchallenged. Also, it's really nice for when I want to smoke a joint in plain view. Cops just nod or wave at me, no matter where I am standing at whatever time of night, with absolutely no idea if I should be there or not. And all my uniform consists of is black slacks and a polo with an arm and chest patch. Nothing flashy or even that noticeable. Most of the time I feel as though I'm just dancing in everyone's peripheral vision, and they contrive for themselves that whoever I am, I should be here and don't need to be questioned. It's a head trip. Story 14. When trying to convince somebody to do something, offer them two options, either of which is okay with you. Humans have a hard time selecting outside of the given options. Example: so, did you want me to pick you up at 7 o'clock or 7:30? Did you want me to pick up the $50 one or the $35 one? Story 16. I call this one the Glenn Beck because he's the master, but really news sources and political campaigns use this trick every day on all of us. Want to plant an idea in someone's head and have them not be able to trace it back to you. Phrase the idea as a question, inducing uncertainty by using related ideas' basic word association. Bear with me. Let's say you want to get your wife to cook dinner at home more and you know she associates home cooking with higher nutrients. Instead of saying you should cook dinner more often, you'd simply ask the question, Timmy's looking a little pale. Do you think he's getting enough vitamins? Let the target's imagination do the convincing for you. Vitamins, greater than nutrition, greater than home cooking. You just have to have an idea how your target associates words if you're going for a specific result, or the whole thing has to be generic enough to work on most people in a given culture if you're trying to change the tide of an election. A couple of these ideas, strategically planted, can completely change someone's disposition. There's probably a word for this whole concept, but I don't know it. I sort of rediscovered it in a vacuum.